Today's Cosplay Con Talk episode is sponsored by Moco Queen Color Contacts. Don't forget to use my code Wayne for 10% off at checkout at mocoqueen.com. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Lag. How's it, everyone? Wayne the Unknown here, and welcome back to another episode of Cosplay Con Talk, where we basically discuss everything pertaining to the cosplay community and conventions. I'm joined here by Euphoria BJC and another episode of Get to Know That Cosplayer. How you doing, Bridgett?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
I am doing well. Again, thank you for coming on to Cosplay Con Talks, Get to Know That Cosplayer.
hmm Yeah, of course. This will be fun.
So basically, this segment will be talking about how long you've been cosplaying for, the cons you've done, the cosplays you've done, and any advice and experiences you'd like to share. So to begin, how long have you been cosplaying for?
Ooh, see, that's always a tricky question, and I get asked that a lot because I had no idea what cosplay actually was until well after I had been doing it. I didn't know what it was until I was out of college, and somebody saw me because my husband and I, he was my boyfriend then, would just dress up in costumes, and we would do it to promote our theater company. And they're like, "Oh my gosh, your costumes are amazing. You should come to our cosplay convention in town." And I was like, "What's cosplay?" And they're like, "Well, you're doing it right now." I was like, "Oh, okay." So I think technically the first time I cosplayed would have been my senior year of high school. I just had no idea what I was doing, and I did it ever since then. I just thought I was dressing up and being a character. I didn't know there was a term for it.
How long ago was that, if you can remember?
My senior year of high school was 2008.
So over 10 years. Do you remember what your very first convention was?
My first convention, yes. I actually went to a comic convention when I was in my senior year of college, which was 2012. And again, it was honestly, it was kind of early in the stages of the comic explosion of Comic Cons because it was Pittsburgh Comic Con. I got to meet Stan Lee. I went dressed up as Rogue because Rogue's my number one girl, and I wore her legacy costume. But it was an it was a time where it wasn't huge yet in 2012 because I remember we went to the Stan Lee panel, and I wasn't in VIP seating at all, and I was probably 35 feet from him because the room was just that small, and that was the audience it had. And we got a picture with him. My good friend Walt, who is still such a champion for what I do, he had gotten a pass to get Stanley's photo, and I think we stood in line for maybe half an hour, but it was just a different time then. So that was my first convention, Pittsburgh Comic Con.
So you're in the category, as I put it, cosplay veteran. You've been going to constant cosplaying for over the past 10 years.
Yeah, I think that's weird to think about, but I guess yeah. I was just having fun.
That's crazy. Um, you said Pittsburgh Comic Con was your first con?
I went to college over in Ohio, Kent State University, and I have a degree in fashion design. So, actually, it's a funny story. The big fashion show that we built up to our whole senior year in college, we designed a collection. It was going to be on a runway with a big show, was the same day as the Pittsburgh Comic Con. And I have always been a huge comic book fan. I loved reading comic
I
books.
mean, your Gambit shirt and your X-Men figures are a dead giveaway.
Right, right. And so I had talked to my friends I was going with, and I was like, I really want to go with you. I just have to be back in time to do this thing, I guess, this college final fashion show that night. And they're like, yeah, we'll get you back for that. So we went early in the morning, drove to Pittsburgh from Kent, Ohio, came back and I had just enough time to like shower and change and get to the fashion show to do my basically school final. But what I remember from that day is meeting Stanley.
Nice. So, Pittsburgh Comic Con, what is that like? I don't think I've ever heard of it before.
It was pretty small, to be honest, but again, this was 2012. It had a vendor area, and then it had a back area, kind of a conference room area where they had the guests go and talk in, and then like a celebrity photo area. It wasn't huge. It was probably on the smaller to mid-level size, but it's hard to compare because when you think of comic conventions now, they're so much bigger. And me and my husband got a picture with Stanley the first convention he went to, Denver Pop Culture Con, and it was such a drastic comparison from how long we had to wait to get a picture with Stanley at that point in time compared to when it was 2012. And so I think I think the explosion of pop culture was beginning. So maybe I've never been back to it since. So maybe Pittsburgh Comic Con is bigger now. I don't know.
If you can remember, how many cons have you gone to altogether, if you can remember?
Whoa, we try, like me and my husband try to do like two or three a year. And since we've been going 17, so maybe like 20-ish.
That's not bad.
Yeah. I'd say like altogether with the smaller local conventions we do plus the trips we do, probably around 20-ish.
It's not. That's not bad at all. Um, what's it been like going to conventions with your husband?
I love it. It is the best. It is the best thing in the world. My sister makes fun of me all the time because she's like, "You actually found a man who will dress up with you and go to comic book conventions, and you're not forcing him to do that? Like, how did you find this man?" And I was like, honestly, I just feel lucky he found me because it's not every day a couple wants to do that together. But it's the
No,
highlight
no,
of
that's very
our
valid in
relationship.
extreme.
Yeah,
Nice.
you're usually you have that, oh yeah, that's your thing. But for us, we're both theater people. We own a theater, and so I feel like acting and dressing up is just in our blood.
I remember, Brian, aka Brute Images, was telling me about how you and your husband own your own theater and everything. And that's like what you guys used for your the Resident Evil fan film.
Mhm. Yep, yep. He
Nice.
needed a location, and I was like, we have one. Just come film in our basement. It's pretty fun.
Nice. Oh yeah, from what I've heard from him, it has been fun. So a question I've been starting to ask recently, I make it as a two-parter. Advice for non-cosplayers going to a convention and advice for uh cosplayers going to a convention. Whichever you feel like
For
answering first.
well, do they want to cosplay or are they just happy to go as in those groups?
Either or, whether they're just a con attendee or a cosplayer going to their first con advice.
Cool. So if you're not a cosplayer, you're more of a collector and you're there to kind of see the creators, I would definitely advise checking the guest list in advance, seeing what creators are going to be there because if you have back issues that you want signed, you can prep those, pull them out, and get them ready to travel in advance instead of getting to the convention being like, "You're here? Oh my gosh, I wish you could have signed number, 17 of my collection of X-Men." So for like that could be for anybody going to a convention, but I feel like people who are not cosplaying and just going to enjoy the show, that might be something to check in advance. And if you're specifically not a cosplayer, just don't be don't be confused that there's a lot of people running around in costume. Well, it's pretty normal. And if
It's
you are
very.
cosplaying, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, no, no. Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
And if you are cosplaying, remember, I think this is very important. Remember that you will probably have to, consume food and go to the bathroom at some point in time. So maybe choose your exit strategy from your costume in advance and be careful not to wear something that will overheat you, especially multiple days in a row. One of the earlier conventions, Wizard World Chicago, me and my husband went to, he did not choose costumes very well back to back. The first day he went as Edward Scissorhands, which is like covered in leather head to toe, and the next day he wore
Mm-hmm.
Gambit, and his chest piece is leather that I made him. So he was covered once again head to toe, and that second day he was so heat exhaustion, dehydrated, that he had to take some time and just get some water in him because he did not realize until that second day how dehydrated he had gotten. So that is something definitely to be aware of.
That's some pretty sound advice. Now, you've traveled for conventions, correct?
Hmm.
Out of state?
Yep. Yeah, yeah. I think Illinois, Chicago is the farthest we've traveled. We really
Mm.
like C2E2.
That's a good con from what I've heard.
Yeah.
So advice for those who are wanting to travel out of state or across the country for a con, just travel in general, for a con, for
Um,
advice for that.
yeah. Uh, Number one, most important thing, if you're going with a group, make sure this group is someone you can handle for those multiple days and you can handle for long periods in a car. Because the last thing you want to do is get an hour ride into your 18-hour drive and be like, I can't stand this person. I need out of this car right now. We kind of always plan our trips. Somebody takes care of the hotel, searching that out, and somebody else takes care of getting like the parking passes because you have to pay parking separate than your hotels and your travel with your gas and all that kind of stuff that factors into it. It's good to think of the expenses you're going to have to cover outside of just your 3-day badge. Also, what day are you going to leave? When we have done it in the past, and this is something we've been changing the past few years because we're getting older and we don't, want to live in the fast lane quite so much as we once did. We used to go the Thursday, if it was a 3-day convention, we used to go drive into town and check into the hotel room Thursday night, even like at 3 a.m. in the morning, go to convention Friday, go to convention Saturday night, have everything pre-packed because we would have to check out of the hotel room Sunday morning, pack up the car that Sunday morning, go to the convention, and then drive all the way back. That's a lot. And if you are more of a slow life kind of person, you might want to think about booking an extra day that Sunday night so you can drive back at ease on Monday.
That's some pretty sound advice, and I'm sure you can also would also recommend if you're going to your first con, make sure, or just a con in general, make sure you have a set budget, whether for
Oh
food,
yeah,
for merch,
absolutely.
whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. Because inside those vendor halls, the food is so ridiculously expensive. And that's just because they have a captive audience and they can change whatever they want for a Coke.
Pretty much. Another question I always ask, for someone who's wanting to go to their first con, whether they're cosplayer or not, well, whether they're cosplaying or not, would you recommend they bring, as I call it, a convention exit buddy, someone to bring with you just in case things get too much, you need to leave early, or like you need to go, like say, hey, can we go somewhere so I can like sit down and like work for a few minutes before we go and do something else at the con?
Yeah. For somebody who's going to a convention for a first time, I would definitely recommend talking to somebody who has been to that specific convention because every convention is different in how it's set up, if they have quiet rooms available for people. I know our local convention here, uh, has always had a room set up that is quiet that people can go into and there's like not allowed to talk above a whisper or even loud conversations. It's just not allowed. It's there for people to go get away and recharge. I know that's not at every convention. So having somebody who knows that specific space and how it's set up is very handy. Also, try to go with somebody who doesn't have their own agenda. Like, they want to hit this panel, this person, this thing. Because if you go with someone like that and it's your first convention, you might be overwhelmed and drug along and not be able to experience and enjoy it on your own time. So try to take somebody who's just there to have fun and maybe isn't there with his own plans or her own plans.
That's pretty fair. Next question. So this, give me a minute. I gotta check when this is gonna be out. Give
Take
me a
all your time.
minute.
It's fine.
So your interview will be out in September. Um, any cons you're gonna be you plan on going to before this is out and after this is out?
September
So yeah,
of
so
all the
your
way.
interview will be out in yeah, so your interview will be out in September. So by the time this
All
is out, what
right.
cons will you have gone to, and what cons do you plan on going to?
All right. So we have our local conventions here in South Dakota. It's Black Hills Con. I'll probably be going to that. I'll have been to Denver. They've just changed it from Pop Culture Con to Fan Expo, Denver Fan Expo. And then if it's out in September, a new convention I am so excited about, and we're gonna go in September. It's called the Uncanny Experience. And me and my husband will be going to that. It's an X-Men focused 2-day weekend convention that's in a mansion, and
Ooh.
you can go as like your own mutant creations, or you can go as established X-Men characters. They're gonna have like they have Chris Claremont, they have voice actors from the animated show already as guests. Apparently they're gonna have it set up like the Xavier Mansion, and then underground there might be a Hellfire Gala or a Hellfire Club area you can go to. It's new, it's the first year that they're ever doing it. So I'm so excited, and I hope it goes well because I'm going to go
So,
back every year.
I that sounds pretty cool. Basically, it's a X-Men themed convention at at the quote unquote X Manor.
Exactly. I'm
That
psyched.
is pretty freaking cool.
And it's in
I
Minnesota.
like very nice. Well, for those
I'm so
who are
excited.
watching this, hopefully you did get the chance to go there.
Yeah.
Nice. That's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
I am crazy excited for this. It's everything I've ever dreamed of. Those are
Nice.
the ones we have on the docket. We might add one more in there if it pops up and it's close by.
Nice. So, out of all the cons you've gone to over the past 11 years, what's been your favorite convention?
I really love C2E2. I love the way it's set up. I like, for the most part, they have great variety of guests. So we usually go with a group of five. We carpool over. It's a long drive, so there's something for everybody in that group to enjoy once they're there. The cosplay is top tier level because they have the Crown Championships of Cosplay at that convention, which I competed in 1 year. I would love
Oh,
to apply to
nice.
compete again, but I just haven't found the right project because it is like top tier competition. Um, I just think it's a great convention. The only thing I'm disappointed about is that this past year we went, they had gotten rid of their iconic red carpet that was always in the vendor exhibit hall.
I've heard a lot of
Yeah.
I heard about that a lot of
Yeah.
well not getting rid of their iconic carpets.
Yeah. It was a little sad, but I guess it won't break the bank, or it won't break my love for it.
Nice. So real quick before we talk about your cosplays, advice for those who want to go to a big con for their first con. They don't want to go to the little cons. They're like, you know what? I don't want to do the dinky little cons or the indie cons. I want to like do like the big major well-known cons.
Hmm. Uh, well, be prepared that there's going to be wait times much longer than if you went to a smaller convention. Um, be prepared for a lot of people on Saturday because that's the meatiest wall to wall, shoulder to shoulder people walking around the floors. Maybe plan out things you want to see on Friday because it's much easier to get around on Fridays compared to Saturdays. And Sundays are family days for the most part. From what I've observed, a lot of families go on Sundays. Did I just say that? Sundays are the when the family's supposed
Yeah,
to
you
come out.
did.
So when you're planning your costume, maybe be a little bit more cognizant about there might be more children running around on Sundays. If you're planning
Oh
a
yeah.
costume.
Oh no, that's some again, that's some really really good sound advice.
I've learned
So
a few things.
next, hey, it's always good when you can learn a few things from conventions. So next we're gonna be talking about cosplays, but first, for those who are wanting to get into cosplay or those who are starting out, would you recommend like thrifting, especially if there's someone if it's a cosplayer on a budget?
Mhm. 100%. If you're just kind of like interested in the hobby, but you don't want to basically not throw away, but if you don't want to invest a lot of money into it to begin with to see if you actually like it or if it's not for you, thrifting closet cosplays are so fun and creative, and they don't cost a lot. I have a really good friend right now. She's never done cosplay in her life, but she wants to get into it. So we've been trying to plan groups that she can just thrift and see if she likes it because she also doesn't have any sewing talent. And to have a costume commissioned is very expensive. So closet cosplays are economically friendly, plus super creative because you can take whatever creative liberties or your own interpretation and infuse it into that character. Like, for example, all of the cute Pokemon cosplays that people put together of like actual Pokemon characters, the Bulbasaurs and the Jigglypuffs, they're so creative, but you can still look at them and be like, oh, I absolutely see Eevee in that.
Nice. So we talked about your very first cosplay, which was Rogue's Legacy outfit. What was it like cosplaying? What was that like being your first cosplay?
That was okay. I would probably, yes, classify that as my first cosplay that I wore to a convention. If we go back to high school when I wore probably my first cosplay experience, I made a 90s rogue. Obviously, she's my heart. And that I just wore and strutted around. And then I did Electra in between those. But I think for the purpose of what cosplay is at a convention, the Legacy Rogue was the first. And it was so fun because I had just wore it because I love her. And I asked the guys I was going with, I was like, is this allowed? Can I wear a costume to this where we're going? They're like, yeah, that's totally cool. You should do it. None of them dressed up. But uh, so I was the one person dressed up in our group walking around as Rogue, and it was great. At that point in time, I was a senior in my fashion design school, so I had used all of the pattern making
Is
that I
this
had learned in.
her legacy outfit?
Yeah, the flight suit with the scarf and the X on the chest and the shoulders.
Nice.
Yeah. Um, and I knew we were going to go to that convention in in the middle of the year, but I'd actually made the costume for Halloween that same year. So Halloween had happened beforehand, and I had the costume already to wear to the convention because Halloween's fun. So I'd made that costume over the summer previous to that school year, worn it for Halloween, just had it in my closet. And it's such a cute outfit. I can actually just wear that dress top as a casual look. I love it when costumes line up like that. I have pieces from, like, if you remember the TV show Chuck, I did a Sarah Walker costume, and I just wear those pieces all the time instead of just for the costume. I remember a lot of people weren't dressed up at that particular convention, but there was one guy dressed up as Deadpool. His name was Mark. And he was ecstatic that there was a rogue on the floor. That I didn't see another rogue on the floor at all that day, but he was so ecstatic because we were the only like X universe characters roaming around the floor that day. So he instantly became my buddy. We still talk on Facebook sometimes, and
Nice.
we have great like photos from that day just because you were able to connect with people that shared that fandom. And dressing up as a character, that's an automatic giant flag of saying I love this, and people who also love that are more comfortable coming up to you and being like, I love that show too, because there's an automatic bond between you. It's
Oh,
very charming.
I wholeheartedly agree. So now, what's that one cosplay you've not done in so long that you would like to bring back?
Oh boy, Ryan Brewer and I with Brood Images were just talking about this. My heart is the '90s X-Men Rogue cartoon series, Jim Lee's drawings. Oh, I got Jim Lee to sign my coat when I met him at C2E2,
Do you
and
have a picture
he
of
like
that?
I do. I can send it to you. I actually have the
Oh
coat.
yeah.
So I had signed up to get his, autograph, and you could take three things to be autographed by him. And I was standing in this long line, and in front of me there was guys with like suitcases with comics, and they were all from comic
Ah,
shops, and they were going to take the comics back, and they were going to sell them in their shops. And then it
yeah,
got
that's yeah. I'm
it
fully
got
aware of it bringing people bringing stuff in bulk to get signed and then sell it for more than what it's worth.
Exactly. So I was kind of sandwiched between all these guys with those suitcases. And so I get up to the table and I hand him my coat that I was wearing that day because I was dressed up as Rogue. I hand him my coat and he's like, "Oh, where do you want the signature?" And I was like, "Wherever you think it would work well, you know how you sign it. So just wherever. It's just for me." And so my husband was standing next to me as Gambit and I hand him over my coat. And so he just starts and he did a squiggle. I was like, yeah, that looks like a signature. And then he went back over it and he started like scribbling it out. And Steven, my husband, and I both look at each other like, did he just mess up his own signature? But as we kept watching, it turned into a sketch. And he was drawing Rogue on my coat for me.
Nice.
I was just like, right now, even thinking about it, I'm hyperventilating and getting emotional about it. And so I get out of the room and I'm just beaming and I can't stop smiling. And the guy who was in front of me, because we had been chatting in the line, he was like, "So how'd it go?" I was like, "Great, look what he did." And he was like, "Oh," and he just took off.
It sounds like the guy was butthurt.
He was a little jealous, but I was like, you know what?
Oh,
I feel like Jim
win.
knew this was for me, and it was for my heart.
Well, I've noticed I know when like you get something autograph, especially if it's for you and you're not gonna sell it, they'll go above and beyond with
Yeah,
the autograph. Not
yeah,
just like I feel like these people know it's like, yeah, I see you with a big suitcase. I know you're gonna like sell it for more than it's and there's nothing against that, but I've
yeah.
seen at cons, especially if you're in a line for 2 hours, you see like those guys with like the big totes, suitcases. It's just
Yes,
like,
yeah. The rolling suitcases. Yeah,
oh
yeah.
jeez.
That was that was exactly what went through my brain. I was like, he just knew it was me. He knew it meant something super special, and I was so blown away and grateful that that happened. So yeah, I have that picture. I'll send it to you where I have like the coat and I'm standing right next to him at the table. So he took a picture of
Nice.
it.
So, back to the question: Is that was the what '90s Rogue you said? Is the
Yeah.
cosplay
Oh
you've not done
yeah.
stuff for a
Sorry, I
long?
got sidetracked. So '90s Rogue I do all the time, but Brood Images, his favorite Rogue is '80s punk rock Rogue, and I did that a while ago, but I haven't done it since. And he was like, "I would love to revisit that." And I'm like, "If it's a Rogue, I'll do it any day, all day,
'90s
every
punk
day."
rock. I'm just
It's
writing
I
that
do the
down
one
so I
where
don't forget.
she has a mohawk and it's the black leather latex suit with just the green off the shoulder and studded belts. So, yeah.
I'm looking that up right now.
It's a good
So
look.
next, so before I go on to another one, you said you've competed. What is that like? And what was the first cosplay you've ever competed in?
Ooh. Oh, goodness. Um, I've competed in a few smaller things, but I think C2E2 was the biggest competition I competed in. Um, it was different. It was very fun. It was very challenging. The Crown Championships of Cosplay have different categories that you sign up for, and since I'm primarily sewing, I signed up for the needlework category. I think they have armor is another category, and FX, like body paint or prosthetics, something that focuses in that genre. Um, but the needlework category is the one I chose for C2E2. Oh, I remember the first one that I like officially competed in. It was Wizard World Chicago. Me and my husband both competed there.
Nice.
That's different. That's different though, because that's every convention is different with their competition. I just want to clarify that right now. And so C2E2 is much different. Like I had to pre-submit photos and detailed pictures of my artist work, my seamstress work, and the Wizard World
Basically a
Chicago.
portfolio.
Basically, exactly. And then Wizard World Chicago was just sign up, walk across the stage, and exit. So it was a lot more low key, just for funsies, as opposed to a craftsmanship competition.
So for C2E2, what was your cosplay? What was your competition piece that you entered?
That was my original design of Steampunk Rogue. It was a Western steampunk design I did. I made her kind of look like a saloon girl, and then I had these wings that I designed to go behind her because I was like, well,
Ooh.
flights. I love designing crossovers, and the thing I love most about designing crossovers is going into the lore I create when I design them. So I was like, well, steampunk. She flies in the comics, but I think she needs something to help her navigate the winds in the wild wild west because it's not easy breezy out there sometimes. And then I thought about her powers and how I wanted to translate it to a steampunk universe. And I was like, well, when she absorbs people, I want her to put those powers in these little vials, and then when she wants to reuse these powers, she can break that vial and have access to it. So I had these thigh-high boots I made out of leather, and on my boots, they were lined with little capsule vials. And I filled all those vials with colors and little details that I thought resembled different mutants or X-Men's powers. So I could pull off like one that looked like firecrackers for Jubilee and pretend to smash it and use her powers.
Nice. I'm looking at your I'm looking at your Instagram. A good chunk of 'em is Rogue.
Oh yeah.
Um, I'm looking at one of your other cosplays. I'm looking at your Jinx cosplay
Yeah.
from Arcane. I gotta ask, did you ever worry about tripping over the wig because I know Jinx's hair is really long.
So long. I love it. I always joke with my friends that I have a compulsion to cosplay characters with humongous hair because I've done Jasmine from Aladdin, I've done Rapunzel from Tangled, I've done, if you're familiar with indie comics, Delilah Dirk. And then Jinx has huge long ponytails too. I
Delilah who?
wasn't Delilah Dirk. Tony Cliff, I believe, authors, illustrates, colors that book. It's a one-man project. It is such a fun project. It's like Indiana Jones, but she's got a pile of hair streaming down behind her.
I'm looking up her right. Uh,
That is her. That is her. I cannot recommend that comic book enough. If you are just wanting a fun romp with cheeky humor, oh, it's so good.
nice.
But I wasn't
Um,
really worried about tripping on my Jinx ponytails. They were kind of fun to swing around, actually. Kind of like
I
little
mean,
whips on the side of your head.
it looks like it. It looks like you had a hell of a time though. And did you
Oh,
hand
God.
paint? Did you hand paint her tattoos as well?
For mm, I've done her a couple times, and the first couple times I did it, I hand painted the tattoos on, and then one time I did temporary tattoo applications. So there's
Nice.
somebody who sells her tattoos, and you just print them out at home on tattoo paper, and it saves a lot of time.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
I love it when modern technology is just an accent that makes things a little bit easier in life.
Oh no, I wholeheartedly agree on that. So next question. What's that one cosplay? I call them one and dones. It was a cosplay that you
Mhm.
did once, but you've never done it since. Whether someone asked you to do it, you were curious, and if ever given the right opportunity, would you ever do it again?
Ooh, hmm. That's a really good question. What comes to mind immediately is Cheetah, just because the
Oh,
intensity.
from the Wonder Woman comics.
Yes, from the Wonder Woman comics.
Which is the picture we're using for one of your four favorite cosplays in the
Yeah,
thumbnail.
I
That's a
love
lot of
it.
body paint.
That's a lot of body paint, and that is exactly the reason why it's not that I would never do her again, but I would have to be really enticed for the payoff to do all that body paint again. I think it took me 5 hours because I was doing it by myself.
Oh, jeez.
Yes, and it was so fun. I love doing the shading on that and the spots and everything, but, like, I'm more of a perfectionist than a good enough type person, so I spent a lot of time getting, like, the lines on the face and the dots just right and the shading on your body so, you had everything covered and it didn't look flat like a cartoon, it had more realistic texture to it. But that was oof, I love that shoot. I loved it so much. A couple people had wanted to do Wonder Woman shoots fighting my cheetah, and I was like, I don't know. We'll think about it. It'd be so much easier if I just had a painted bodysuit, but
Oh yeah, no.
it's just not the same. The painted bodysuits
Her
just aren't the same.
her cheetah outfit reminds me of her look in Injustice
That's
2.
what it's from. Yep, Injustice 2.
I thought I looked when he sent me the picture to put on the phone. I was like, "Is that? Yeah, that's her look
Uh
from
huh.
Injustice 2."
Uh huh. Yes. I loved her designs. I honestly, the Injustice video game designs are so cool, and I love the details they go into. Because comic books sometimes they can't
Oh yeah.
go into that detail because you have to draw it over and over and over. But when you render it in video games,
Oh yeah.
there's a lot of
But
design elements there.
her look is really cool in my opinion.
I love
So
how feral it is.
oh yeah. Oh yeah, no, definitely. I like that look, honestly, aside from the one from Wonder Woman 82. Another so you done body paint. Aside from Cheetah, what's been your I guess your all-time favorite body paint cosplay?
Oh, see, I can't say, well, since this is going to air in September, then my one of my top goal bucket list body paint characters will be done by then, and hopefully I've worn it to the Denver Fan
Ooh,
Expo convention.
who is it?
Demona from the Gargoyles. Yeah.
Going I've only seen I mean, I've seen a lot of Demonas, and the one I remember seeing the most of was a Demona done by Gracie the Cosplay Lass.
Hmm.
She
Yeah.
did a Demona, and I you don't really see a whole lot of Demonas, mainly because not many
I
people
think,
know of her,
and
or
I
she's
think
just
she's
really
hard to
hard to
do.
do. Yeah, no,
I
because that's a lot of like that's like a she's like a bluish gray red, and she's like basically wearing rags,
She's wearing rags. She has to have wings, a tail, and then some jewelry pieces.
and then
Um,
her 90s style punk hair.
Yeah, the giant hair. So right now we're in the design process of making the wings. And the thing that's held me back from doing it is because I'm particular. It goes back to that perfectionism of I want it a certain way, and if I
Mhm.
can't do it that way well, I don't want to do it. So
For anyone
my
who's wondering what Demona looks like from Gargoyles,
yes. Oh, she's such a great
that's definitely
character.
a grayish that's like a grayish blue and a I want to say auburn hair color.
Yeah, yeah. And the way I want to paint her body paint is I want to do all the muscle definition, but I also want to give it to the texture so it looks like it's stone. So having the speckles of different colors in it and grain rivers that run through it.
Ooh, that's gonna probably be and I imagine so aside from her being a big project, because looking at her, she's gonna be a big project. Have you had any previous big project cosplays that you've done in the past?
Yes. I think I had always wanted to do a Zelda and Link cosplay with my husband ever since we started dating. I was like, I want to do Link and Zelda so bad. And I think what took me so long to do that costume is because I wanted to do it well. And I wanted to make it look authentic to the period that I know it's fantasy, but I for Zelda, I really wanted to use textures and fabrics that I thought might have been used in that time and era and period. So for the Breath of the Wild costumes, I think so much when I design costumes. For the Breath of the Wild costumes, I wanted Steven's tunic to be made out of wool because it would I thought in my brain that was a practical thing that a soldier would be put in. The Hylian tunic would be made from wool because it breathes. It keeps the rain off. It doesn't absorb water, so it's very tactical. They used it a lot in like Revolutionary War times
Ooh. So
for
you try to
soldiers.
go as authentic with fabric as you can.
I do, yeah. Like for fantasy things, like superheroes, it's not such a big deal. But I think that's why I
It's more
wanted
latex and spandex and leather with
exactly,
heroes, or
exactly. It's
just
more
comic
like
book
a
characters
choices
in general.
between colors instead of textures. But for Zelda, and I've wanted to do Lord of the Rings costumes, but I haven't done them for the same reason, I think. For Zelda's costume, I was like, well, she's a princess. What do I want to use for her? Obviously, silk. 100% silk. Silk is very expensive. What kind of silk do I want to use? I want the Dupioni because it photographs so well with the textures that run through the fabric.
Dupioni, what's that? I've never heard of that.
It's silk dupioni is fabric that has the slubs in it, so that it's made from a silkworm and it's unrefined, so it has those big
Ooh,
slubs and gets that texture through it. Instead
fancy.
of looking very straight and sleek. I just like the way it photographs. Um, so the Link and Zelda Breath of the Wild his Hylian his champion tunic I actually made twice because the first one I was unhappy with the way it looked on him. And I did all the hand embroidery on it, all the flossing. We did a photo shoot with it, and I was like, it looks great, don't get me wrong, but I don't like the way it looks. So I remade the whole thing in a different type of wool fabric because the first time I used a boiled wool and I loved it for the practicality and the texture and the authenticity that it lent to the time, but I didn't like the way it looked on him.
Oh, oh,
And so I made a second one. And I redid
you're
all the
breaking
hand
up.
stitching.
You're breaking up.
I'm so sorry. Am I getting
Wait,
better?
you're breaking up.
Am I getting better?
Okay,
Am
yeah,
I
your screen. Oh,
am I
okay, yeah. I'm
freezing?
gonna have to cut that out.
All
Yeah, okay.
right.
Well, so what? So real quick, can we do a real quick recap of that again?
I've actually made
You're good now.
Steven, my husband, two champion tunics. The first one, I did all the hand embroidery on it. I used a boiled wool because I thought that was appropriate for the fantasy time period texture and authenticity to what a knight would be wearing. But when I got it all finished after we did the photo shoot with it, I was unhappy with the way it looked on him. And boiled wool will stretch, like wool will stretch, but that fabric really stretched and made it look more like a cozy sweater. I think would look a lot better on a man who was a size bigger in stature, so it could hug him more. It was kind of I even made a mock-up and I fit it to him before I did all the hand embroidery, but over the time of all the embroidery being put on it, it stretched out and got bigger. So I made him a whole nother version of the champion tunic and redid all the embroidery. I used a wool, but I used a different type of wool. And I was also happier with the fabric color that it turned out. So when I say I'm picky
Nice.
about how the outcome is, I do mean I'm picky. But those were very intense costumes that I'm very, very proud of. My Breath of the Wild research outfit for Zelda, I was so happy about how it turned out. And there's a compromise that has to be made sometimes when you're working with a fantasy realm and trying to make it authentic textures. For example, if you're familiar with her outfit, the research outfit, she's got a blue top and then underneath
And
is a
like
white
dark
shirt.
brown, and then like dark brownish pants.
Right, the dark brown pants. What always hung me up on it was the fact that she has those design lines making the Hyrule crest, basically, Phoenix, underneath the blue top. But it's so tight on her, it technically I think they were designing a button-up shirt. But in my mind, I'm like, if you put a button-up shirt under that, it's going to move around on you. It's not going to stay in place where you want it to. But if you do make a shirt that's a button up tight enough, you're not going to be able to move out in the field and do research. So that's an instance where I had to step away from doing things as practically to period accurate fabrics as possible. So the base suit underneath my silk blue top is actually a spandex fabric that I hand embroidered instead of doing seam lines for the Hylia crest underneath. So it's a
Nice.
little.
And speaking of Legend Zelda, because I was looking that up, you also done Chic
I've done
as
so many
well.
Zelda things, yes. I love Chic so much. She is such a fun costume to wear. It just, I made
Spoilers,
that one.
spoilers,
Spoilers,
it's
it's
actually
Zelda.
Zelda.
Spoilers, it's Zelda. Shh, don't tell anyone. um, I made that costume specifically because it was during COVID and I wanted to. I would rather make and wear a costume that looks like a mask goes with that specific character. And I was like, obviously, Sheik. Sheik wears a mask that I will wear and it will be appropriate for the character. So I made that one specifically at the tail end of that when cons were coming back in, but still kind of requiring masks. I've
Oh
also
yeah,
done the
no,
Great
that
Fairy.
is she the one with the purple hair or pink hair?
Yeah, the giant pink hair and the crazy makeup.
Oh, from
Um,
Breath of the Wild.
I did the Great Fairy I did was actually from the Hyrule Warriors game, and I think that was also inspired off of the Ocarina of Time Great Fairy. They just re-upped
Hi,
her
I'll
design
just
and
put I'll
streamlined
just
it.
put Great Fairy Hyrule Warriors, which in my opinion is
Nice.
a really good game.
I love the Hyrule Warrior
Um,
games.
so League, so for you for yeah, so for your biggest build cosplay was Steve's Link and yours, which in a way both their outfits match in color and almost style.
hmm Yeah. And all the leather work that had to
Nice.
go into it and the props that had to go into those costumes. Uh, it
Oh, I
was it
imagine there
was
was a
a
lot of a lot.
yeah. I love
Oh,
working with leather.
jeez.
I think it's such a versatile tool for cosplay.
Uh,
And it's very sturdy. Like you can wear it and wear it and wear it and it won't break down.
nice. So aside from Rogue being your favorite cosplay, what has been your all-time favorite cosplay? Aside from Rogue, because I know she's been mentioned a
Aside
lot,
from
and
Rogue.
I've had people come on who talk about that one multiple cosplay that they've done. So aside from Rogue, what has been your all-time favorite comfort cosplay? Like no matter what, you always enjoy cosplaying them.
It's probably, oh, that's so hard because different characters evoke different emotions when you cosplay them. So one that's okay, a few come to mind. if
Okay,
I'm
that's
if,
okay.
if I am cosplaying with my husband and it's a comfort cosplay to do together, Flynn and Rapunzel are so much fun.
I seen video of that on your Instagram where he's like where Steve is climbing up.
Climbing my hair. Yeah, designing that
Yeah.
wig was so fun and that was my goal when I first started talking about
Wait, you
doing
made
the.
that wig?
Yeah, yeah.
How long is that
It's
wig?
21 feet. 21 feet
Damn.
long. And I designed it. So I have a base wig that blends into the long strand, and then the long strand also attaches to my head. But I had sewn a piece of fabric into basically a cylinder tube that I could string a rope through. So I could tie a rope onto something sturdy, string it all the way to the end of my hair, and Stephen could actually reach up the center of that tube I had sewn and grab onto the rope so he could actually
Yeah.
climb
For
climb my hair.
for anyone
Yes.
wondering, is he
That
actually climbing
photo,
that?
he is actually
Or
climbing that. He is. So he had a ladder under him. For the picture, we took it away. I actually posted a video a couple slides later explaining how we did the photo. And then we'd take the ladder away from him. He'd hang from my hair for a couple minutes, and then we'd put the ladder back under him. It was, it's one of those goals that you have in your brain, and you're like, I think I'm going to make this work. I want this fairy tale to become reality. And then,
That is really, and I'm looking at the. With your permission, can I Can I show the video behind
absolutely.
that?
Yeah. Yeah.
That is
Absolutely.
really cool. And
I,
that's really clever too.
I love doing things practically. Like you can do so much with photography and Photoshop and all that stuff, but I love it when we can make things happen practically instead of fix it in post kind of thing.
Nice. Now on to future cosplays. Cosplays you plan on doing through this year, or and your one dream cosplay, a cosplay you have yet to do aside from Mona.
Yeah, aside from Demona. Demona is the top tier dream cosplay. Ooh, goodness gracious. That's a big question. So cosplays, I'm going to do this next year to start with.
Yes.
For Denver Fan Expo, we have our lineup chosen. We're going to do Tears of the Kingdom, Link and Zelda. So it's similar to Breath of the Wild, but just a little bit tweaked.
Oh, for
Dem
the sequel.
yes, yeah. We'll see when the video comes out, and if I fall in love with a different costume that may be featured in the video game, I might just make a whole new costume than tweaking the one I have. And then Demona will be at Denver Fan Expo, and then I will be designing a Viking-inspired crossover rogue. So Viking warrior
Viking
rogue.
Rogue. Ooh.
Oh, wouldn't that be fun?
That's gonna be like a lot of that's gonna be a lot of that's gonna be a lot of fur and leather.
Oh yeah, two of my favorite things. So I don't
Nice.
know if
So
this
Tears of the
is
Kingdom, Viking Rogue. You were
and
saying sorry.
so no, you're fine. I don't know if this qualifies as dream cosplay because it's really not that difficult to make, but it is a dream project series that I have been kind of
That
formulating.
I count that.
You count that? Okay, cool. Um,
Hmm.
it is a series because I'm a really big just a dork who loves puns, and I also love old Hollywood. So I have been planning a Marilyn Monroe series where I am remaking Marilyn Monroe's outfits into roguified versions, and I also have music videos planned parodying the old songs.
Marilyn Monroe.
Marilyn Monroe.
I'm,
So,
I know one of her songs is "Happy Birthday, Mr. President," so I'm probably I just thinking "Happy Birthday, Gambit."
Mr. LeBeau.
Oh, happy birthday,
That'll be
Mr. LeBeau. Oh God.
If
Oh
all goes
God.
according to plan, I will be doing the first video shoot March, and it'll be a
Ooh.
parody on Diamonds Are the Girl's Best Friend. And I
Ooh.
have, yes.
Ooh. That.
Oh, I'm
Ooh.
so
So like.
excited.
So kind of like how Harley Quinn did it in Birds of Prey.
Yeah, just
But
kind of parodying, making your own thing.
except for a pink dress, it's gonna be a green and yellow dress with her.
Exactly. See, you know exactly. I'm gonna just change up colors. Um, and then the men that backed up Marilyn Monroe in that video, I'm actually talking to a lot of our local cosplayers and being like, okay, what color suits do you have? Do you have something that would like give off Cyclops vibes? So all the men assisting in the video will have color schemes of the X-Men, but still
Ooh,
be in
so
that
like
same.
blue and yellow colors. I
Yeah,
can't wait to see this.
it's gonna be so fun.
Oh wow, that's gonna be pretty. Okay, I do allow for anyone who's familiar with this like contact series. When it comes to the guests, I do let them say one F word, and I'm gonna use mine right now. That's gonna be pretty fucking cool to see.
It's gonna be amazing. Thank
Oh
you. I
man,
appreciate that.
of
I,
course. See, I like when. See, the best thing I like about comic book characters, you don't have to do exactly their outfit. You can do something casual and still make it count.
yeah, absolutely. And I
Nice.
love, for some reason, I've always loved doing music video projects. We've done a couple for Christmas just for funsies. We did a parody on You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch, where I did You're a Fun One, Mr. J. And we
Oh,
did a whole,
I saw you and Steve's Harley and Joker inspired Christmas one.
yeah, yeah. So we did a whole music video of just Joker and Harley terrorizing other people on
So
Christmas.
I gotta ask, how long did it take you to make Harley Quinn's Christmas inspired headpiece? Because that's a really big headpiece.
It's huge, but it didn't take that long at all because it's just spandex fabric is so easy to work with. For me, I have a machine called a serger and a cover stitch machine. So
Is that
it's
it in the background right next to you?
this no, but this is a cover stitch machine right here. That's a cover
Oh
stitch.
wow, pretty
Yeah, that
fancy.
one. Yeah, that's there, right there. So for me, and part of the reason why right now lately I haven't been as inspired to do as much superhero costumes is just because they're so easy. The Zelda ones have been so much more challenging for me as an artist that I've just
You like a challenge.
I do like a challenge.
Advice for those who are wanting to make their own cosplays, whether it's something simple or something big.
uh Figure out what machine you have access to and what that machine's capabilities are. If it can't sew spandex fabrics, you might not want to make a spandex costume. Learn what needles can do. Needles are specifically made to sew through spandex, to sew through denim, to sew through
Leather.
heavyweight, lightweights, leather. Yep. So all different needles do different things. Do not just get universal needles and think they're going to work for everything because you will not get the best results and you'll probably break a few along the way.
Oh, I'm sure they broke. I'm sure they had to use a lot of needles to make Catwoman's leather outfit from the '92 Batman film.
Ah, that's a bucket list costume right there.
Oh
There's
yeah.
so much the stitching. I've been thinking about that one a lot because I love Catwoman and my husband's like celebrity crush has always been Michelle Pfeiffer. So
I
I want to
mean,
do yeah. I mean, how can you
you've done the iconic purple suit.
Jim Balance? Yep, yep. The purple one was always my favorite because I love Catwoman. And then I saw that one as a kid because it was out in the 90s. Purple, of course, I was a girl. I loved purple. And she always looked so fierce when she was in those purple costumes. And the covers of her Catwoman comic were so
Oh
cool.
yeah.
The one where she
For
was in that torn up wedding dress.
anyone wondering, your and the purple lipstick to match and
Hmm.
eyeshadow, all purple.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it was
What
all. I
what
didn't make
material
the
did you use?
that is it's from Cosplay Fabrics is a brand that's arose in the last few years that specialize in making fabrics cosplayers would use. And that is one of their ultra preme fabrics, which is it's a coated with plastic, but it also has a pearlescentness to it. So it photographs just beautifully. I
I
did not make
I can see it. It's really well done.
I didn't make the headpiece that was made by Reeves FX, and it's
Ah,
gorgeous. His
his
work's
work
great.
his work is so well done.
I have his
He makes a
bat.
lot of amazing stuff.
Yeah, he really does. I've got his Batgirl cowl, so I'm going to be making Batgirl in the next couple months here.
Ooh, which version of Batgirl?
I'm going to do, oh gosh, I don't know who exactly designed it, but it's the black version with gold accents, and on the inside of the cape, it's just a purple lining. It's, I wouldn't say it's modern to today. It's probably 10 years old design. I really, really, really wanted to do the blue cowl with the gray suit, like
Oh,
old school.
from the animated series.
I really wanted to do that, but I couldn't find anybody that made a blue cowl. And that's just not my expertise. Sometimes you're like, I can't make this.
Yeah,
I'll gladly pay
there's
somebody who is talented in that.
nothing wrong with that.
Yep.
So next up, we're gonna do probably two of my favorite questions. First off, any cosplay mishaps, something that ripped, tore, fall off, shattered, broke, snapped, anything that did go wrong, or did go wrong for the cosplay.
Hmm. Hmm. Oh, yeah. Okay. So it wasn't terrible because we were on our way out. when it happened. I have made a Rococo Harley and Joker version. And
Oh, I've heard of that term before.
okay, Rococo, think of Marie Antoinette and that
Yep.
very extravagant fashion, the wigs that were towering
I have
high.
a friend I have a friend who did a Rococo Anna
Perfect.
from
Yes.
Frozen.
So I had Stephen and I were wearing these at C2E2, and we were wearing them Sunday, and we competed in the masquerade competition, which is a combination of craftsmanship and performance skill on stage. So we were competing on that on Sunday. We did basically everything was going fine all day. My wig for Harley's Rococo is huge. It's two, instead of doing the ponytails, I made two giant towers going straight up and out to the side. And then there's roses and beads and a mask and feathers just all up in that goodness. And so we were fine. It was a little heavy. It's a very heavy wig, so it was getting a little heavy. The competition was later in the day at like 5 p.m. So we did prejudging, we did the competition, and for the competition, Stephen and I, we ballroom dance. That's always a pastime we've done
Very
together.
nice.
So we started doing some ballroom dance steps, and we had talked backstage what we wanted to do for the performance. We did our ballroom dance steps. I did a couple twirls, and then we went into like this little bickering slapstick fighting. And so,
Naturally.
yes, naturally. And so we get off the stage, and as we're exiting off the stage, I can feel like, oh my gosh, my wig is slipping. It is coming off. I had to like just kind of do this while we were waiting for the results to keep it up and in place. Just push it up at the back and hold it with my hands. But it made it. I actually took it off after we won that competition. After we were exiting and going to our car, I just
Very
finally took it
nice.
off.
Yeah.
But it was holding on for dear life.
Oh, I'll bet. How long did that take to make?
Those costumes took quite a while. Harley's dress in particular, I did a lot of hand sewing on. There's probably like 50 hours into her
Oh,
costume.
you mean reminds me of Christina Aguilera's look from the music video for Moulin Rouge.
Yes, 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 yes. So that those two towers of hair off to the side, oof, they are heavy.
Jeez, how much did that damn thing weigh?
It was heavy. I think my Rapunzel wig weighs less because I just kept putting crap on top of it because the Rococo era, they were like, yeah, we'll just stick anything in your hair and it'll be fashion.
Jeez,
And
a lot of hair.
that's a lot of hair. Like I said, I have a penchant for cosplaying characters with huge hair.
That's a understatement.
It's it's the weight I must bear in life.
Now on to my probably my all-time favorite convention horror stories. Basically, something at a convention you experienced that you just thought was like, "What the hell did that actually just happen?"
This is probably worse for me. Did you ever watch Psych? And there was Gus who had the super sniffer. He could smell out anything because his sense of smell is
I
so
no,
strong.
I
If
have not.
people watch Psych, they'll get the reference. I am like that. I can smell things from a mile away, and like if
Mm,
something is going bad, I can just sniff around the kitchen and find it and be like, "This needs to be thrown away." Sometimes at conventions, and this is advice for anybody going to a convention, please wear your deodorant. Please, please, please wear your deodorant.
shower if you can too.
And please, yes, please do that. But you will get, and this is something that just happens because they're excited, and that's okay. And I'm a person who will accept hugs. I'll hug people, but there's it's happened to me a couple times, and it's always just the worst. I think it's the worst because I have such sensitive sense of smell. They'll come around and they'll, do the kind of more appropriate thing when you hug a girl and go over the shoulder. So
Mm-hmm.
you're not like underneath the arms and like near the chest area, but they'll hug from the top. Unfortunately, what it does is it shoves my top of my shoulder into their armpit, and whatever is there then saturates and is a permeating smell for the rest of the day. And if I'm looking here and there, I just smell it. It is, oh, so disgusting. I think it's happened 2 or 3 times. And I'm never mad about it because they're just trying to be nice. And they're hugging like the nice, appropriate way. It's just a please wear deodorant situation.
I get that. And I know there's some people who can't help that, like no matter how much
Yeah,
they
no,
shower.
yep, no. And sometimes it's just what it is. But that is just, that's a little rough when I deal with that.
Yeah, yeah, it's totally understandable. Now your favorite convention moment, something to this day that you'll never, aside from the
Gimli.
rogue, aside from the rogue, that's the only one you can think of.
Oh no, no, that is tops. I can have another one though.
Oh, well, so what's your second favorite convention moment?
Oh, okay. So I shouldn't say Gimli's second. I would be so remiss if I didn't choose number one. Okay. Okay, my husband and I went to his first convention in 2016, Denver Pop Culture Con, and we were dating at the time. We got our picture with Stan Lee that day, and for some reason, Steven was being kind of weird, temperamental, grumpy that day. He
Oh,
was in he was in Gambit and I was in Rogue, and I had pockets in my Rogue costume like on the belt, but like big chunky things I had to put in his pocket for the day. So every so often I just like reach into his pocket to grab my giant phone, and he'd be like, "What are you doing? Stop reaching into my pocket." Like, "I'm sorry, Mr. Grumpy Pants. I just wanted to use your phone." So it turns into later in the day, they had a big stage where they had, cosplayers could go up and take pictures. And it turns out he was so grumpy because when we went on stage and our photographer friend was taking photos of
I
us,
know
he
where
was
this is
like,
going.
yeah, he was like, "Okay, Rogue, Bridgett, I need you to turn around so you can face Gambit for this shot." And I turned around, and Steven's down on one knee with the ring and with the proposing, and I was like, "Ah!" Oh my gosh, that's why you were a big grumpy pants
Do you have a,
all day.
do you have a picture of that?
I have a video of it. It's
Oh,
I'm
if I
gonna
can, if with your permission, could I share that?
absolutely 100%. That is okay. So that's Top's convention moment. I would be so remiss. This was actually our wedding invitations we sent out. Um,
Oh, I love it. Comic book.
yeah.
It's so cool.
Yeah,
Oh, it's
that
so
was
neat.
that was really fun. So that's like the picture from right after, but we actually have a video of the situation because we had a really great friend who was in with Steven on the secret. It was so perfect though because we were dressed as Rogue and Gambit.
That,
And if I can share something that was just crazy afterwards,
oh yeah, go ahead.
that was in 2016 when he proposed. We got married in 2017. Um, Later on, we did our rehearsal dinner for funsies. We all came in costume and did our rehearsal dinner in costume. So we were Rogue and Gambit for all of our rehearsal dinner photos and stuff like that. Turns out, not too far in the future, Rogue and Gambit got married
I
in the
remember
comic
hearing.
books.
I remember hearing about that.
And it was like right after our wedding, and I was over the moon, just so ecstatic, like, "This is our life, it's their life, oh my god." And then I was like, "Marvel, pay me money, you just capped our story."
And so, well, I'm sure Marvel had planned on doing that for years, but like
Probably. Oh yeah, totally.
the fact that you guys technically did it first in real life.
I
I
know,
mean,
that's crazy.
no offense against the comic, but seeing like that in real life and then finding out a comic did it, that's pretty freaking cool.
It's pretty cool. I'm still blown away by that. Whew, what a really crazy world.
Oh, I'll bet. So last but not least, before we end this, any last minute advice you'd like to give to those who are listening and are watching this?
Um, yeah, I guess. There's the pop culture. fandoms and community has really exploded as of late. Like everybody's into it and everybody has such strong opinions on what's good and what's bad and like you should
Mm,
like this because of this and you should like this because this was well written. I would just like to say if you like something, don't be afraid to like it and be proud that you like it. You don't have to like everything that everybody else likes. If you don't like something, don't let people make you feel bad because you don't like the same things as them. We're all different individuals and humans, and we like different things, and that's what makes us individuals. That's what makes us interesting because you have differences to talk about. We're not all cookie cutter carbon copies of each other, and that's beautiful. So be proud and
no,
be happy.
I hardly agree.
Yeah. Yeah. I see that a lot. I see people fighting and just arguing with each other over silly little things. I'm like, we like different things and that's okay.
And there's, again, there's nothing wrong with that at all.
Mm-mm.
I think that should do it. But before we end this real fast, would you care to promote yourself by dropping those links below so people can find you?
Yeah, sure. So I am euphoria.bjc on all social media. You can find me on Instagram and TikTok most of all. I post there probably every single day. Twitter, I am on, but I am sporadically active. Facebook, I am on, and that is basically just linked to my Instagram. So whatever I post on Instagram just shows up on my Facebook page, whichever one you're more into looking at. Um, I mean, I have a Vero, but I think that was there and gone. So it's just euphoria.bjc. EUPHORIA BJC.
Nice.
Yay!
And, as I always say, be sure to follow them to keep an eye on their future cosplays. And I'm also looking forward to see what cosplays you'll be doing before this is out and after, and also hear about your con stories. And
Yes.
yeah, no, again, Bridgett, thank you for coming on to Cosplay Con Talk to talk about your cosplay and a convention experience. And yeah, and as always, I'm Winnie Unknown. Until next time, thank you for listening. And as always, thank you for watching.
Bye.